Welcome to the Sage Solutions podcast, where we talk about all things personal growth, personal development, and becoming your best self. My name is David Sage, and I am a self-worth and confidence coach at Sage Coaching Solutions. I'm so glad that you're joining me today because we're talking about something that might feel a little intimidating at first: vulnerability. Now, I know we've touched on vulnerability in previous episodes, but I'm sure some of you are probably thinking, vulnerability? Isn't that a bad thing? Isn't it all about weakness and exposure? But I promise you, vulnerability isn't what we often think it is. In fact, it's actually one of the most powerful tools for personal development and growth. In today's episode, you and I are going to talk about exactly what vulnerability is, why it's so crucial for your personal journey, and how you can start embracing it in your daily life. Before we get into it, our goal with this podcast is to share free, helpful tools with you and anyone you know who is looking to improve their life. So take action, subscribe, and share this podcast with them. So let's start by talking about what vulnerability actually means. In simple terms, vulnerability is showing up as your true, authentic self, even when it feels risky or uncomfortable. It's about being emotionally honest and real with yourself and others. But here's the thing. It's a common misconception that vulnerability means that you have to spill all of your secrets or share everything about your life. It's not about putting yourself out there just to get attention or sympathy. Instead, it's about allowing yourself to be seen, to be real, to be you, even when there's uncertainty. All right, so I'm going to share a secret with you, one that completely changed my perspective when I realized it. Vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is strength. It takes real strength to be vulnerable. It's easy to hide behind walls or put on a mask, but when we choose to be vulnerable, we're choosing courage. In fact, vulnerability is the main metric used to study courage, because you can't really be brave without being vulnerable. Vulnerability is not about winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. A quote by Brené Brown, world-renowned shame and vulnerability researcher. Not that long ago, vulnerability was seen as something to avoid at all costs, something that makes you weak and that only weak people do. But that's not what the data shows. Everything changed when Brené Brown, in her 2010 TED Talk titled "The Power of Vulnerability," opened up the real power of vulnerability. It showed everyone that vulnerability was something that could be harnessed, something that came with innate benefits, and that we had been looking at it the wrong way. Vulnerability is hard, which is why it requires strength. But first, let's clear up some common myths and misconceptions about vulnerability. Vulnerability is not about oversharing. It's not about dumping all of your emotions on someone or telling them every little detail about your life. That's not vulnerability. It's more like emotional unloading. Vulnerability minus boundaries equals oversharing. Brené Brown. Vulnerability isn't about being needy or helpless either. It's about being emotionally honest and letting people see the real you without letting the fear of judgment get in the way. Brené also talks about how this is not about fear, grief, and disappointment. It's actually the birthplace of everything that we're hungry for: connection, creativity, and joy. So vulnerability isn't something to fear. It's actually what helps us grow. Fitting in is actually the opposite of belonging. Brené Brown. And remember, there's some shades of gray to this. Just unloading every personal detail about your life to a random stranger in an elevator is not vulnerability. You are oversharing. You're unloading and you're dumping. Don't do this. Find the shade of gray. Anything taken to an extreme can become a bad thing. So do it in the right moderation. Work your way up. Use this social awareness to understand whether something is worth sharing or whether it's acceptable to share something in a given situation. Read and respect other people's boundaries. If you do those things, then you'll be able to feel much more comfortable being vulnerable because it'll be in the right proportions. So why is vulnerability so important for personal growth? Well, when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we start to see ourselves more clearly. It helps us face our fears, confront our insecurities, and ultimately grow. It increases our self-awareness and with time, our self-acceptance. Being vulnerable means stepping out of our comfort zones and opening up to new experiences, even when we're not sure how they'll turn out. But it's not just about personal growth. It's about building stronger, more meaningful relationships. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we encourage others to do the same. And that's how trust and connection are built. We are all human. We are all vulnerable. We don't have an indestructible shell like a turtle. All of us could die at any moment. Part of being human is our inherent vulnerability. This is why trying to come across overly perfect, portraying ourselves as this image of perfection all of the time, generally leads to less connection with other people because we don't feel human to them. It's hard for them to connect to that. It's hard for them to relate. But when we use a little bit of vulnerability, we're showing that we're human. And that lets others feel like it's okay for them to be human too. And they see us in them. This builds more connection. Quote, vulnerability is at the heart of shame, fear, and anxiety, but it's also the birthplace of love, joy, and belonging. Brene. Research from the University of Houston has shown that people who embrace vulnerability actually experience more joy, deeper relationships, and a stronger sense of self-worth. It might be tough at first, but it's worth it in the long run. Just a quick note, Brene's research also shows that vulnerability is linked to increased emotional resilience and lower levels of anxiety and depression. Vulnerability comes out in many different areas of our lives, but I want to touch on body language. As a confidence coach, body language is an important part of my practice. I teach people how to have confident body language because your physicality affects your emotions and your mentality. There's a two-way feedback loop. Your brain changes your body language, but your body language changes your brain. But when we look at what confident body language looks like, there's a paradox. When we feel vulnerable, we actually take body language that is meant to protect ourselves. We cover up. We don't expose areas that are vital, like our neck or our heart. We cover ourselves and we turn away. We close off from other people. And this closed body language is because we're feeling vulnerable, weak, insecure. So we're trying to compensate with our body language. The paradox is that confident body language requires vulnerable stances, exposing your heart, exposing your neck, all weak spots that somebody could take advantage of. You look confident, but in reality, you are making yourself more vulnerable to a physical attack. This is because when you feel confident, you have the strength to be vulnerable, both emotionally and physically. Which leads me into how vulnerability is a very important part of confidence. You have to learn how to be vulnerable and how to be courageous if you're going to get true confidence, real confidence. You will find that the more comfortable that you get getting uncomfortable, the more comfortable you get being vulnerable, the more your confidence will grow. Okay, so now that we know why vulnerability is so important, you and I are going to dive into how we can actually start embracing it in our daily lives. Let's break it down. First, start small. Vulnerability doesn't have to be some grandiose, dramatic thing. It can be as simple as sharing something personal with a friend, expressing how you feel, or admitting that you don't have all of the answers. Step 1, be kind to yourself. Practicing vulnerability can feel very uncomfortable at first. And that's totally normal. It's okay. But remember to avoid having vulnerability bring on shaming yourself. This is why self-compassion is key here. Step 2, build your self-awareness. Pay attention to moments where you feel resistant to being vulnerable. That is usually a sign that it's exactly what you need to do. Step 3, look for opportunities to challenge yourself. Maybe it's giving a presentation at work, sharing a part of your story with someone close to you, or taking a risk in a relationship. Brené also talks about how vulnerability is the cornerstone of living authentically. When we embrace our true selves, we step into a life that's filled with courage, creativity, and connection. Owning our story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Another great quote by Brené Brown. If you're afraid of taking risks, or asking questions, or just failure in general, it might be because those often require vulnerability. It's also hard to be creative without exposing yourself, because pitching your ideas, coming up with new things, trying something new, you might look dumb. You might not do as well as you wanted to. But that is the risk of practice. That is the risk of trying. This is why we take action. This is why action is success and outcomes are learning. Like anything else in life, practicing vulnerability is a skill. And building a skill is just like building a muscle. You have to practice it. You have to work on it over time. You have to build it through consistency, through pushing the boundaries of that skill so that you get stronger and stronger. And if you don't use it for a long period of time, the muscle or skill will weaken. So to wrap up, vulnerability isn't something to shy away from. It's one of the most powerful tools for growth, connection, and personal development. When we choose vulnerability, we choose courage, and we open ourselves up to deeper relationships and a more authentic life. I encourage you to take just one small step towards embracing vulnerability today. Maybe it's telling someone that you care, sharing a little more of yourself, or simply being honest about how you're feeling. Whatever it is, know that it's one step toward something greater. Vulnerability isn't always easy, but it's almost always worth it. While this information isn't individualized, it is generally helpful and beneficial. It's important to take your own circumstances into account when trying to apply any information from this podcast. But if you're interested in personalized coaching, feel free to reach out to me at sagecoachingsolutions@gmail.com. And remember, you are enough, and you deserve true confidence and self-compassion. Thank you for listening to the Sage Solutions podcast. Your time is valuable, and I'm so glad you choose to learn and grow here with me. We'd love to hear your feedback, so click the link in the description and let us know what you think. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on more sage advice. One last thing, the legal language. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. No coaching-client relationship is formed. It is not intended as a substitute for the personalized advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional.